Hey everybody, Mike Guglielmi from Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast. Episode 155 is upon us. It is November 2nd. One more week of MLS action coming up next week. Lots of games to talk about today. Thanks for jumping on our regular episode here. It is a little bit early. Even the dogs are excited. I'm sure you can hear them barking like crazy upstairs. They heard the music start and they're like, all right, it's time to get it. So here we are, a little bit early today. I've been crazy with work. I actually got called out of state yesterday, hence not being on for the New York and having to cancel the New York Derby live stream reaction that we had planned. But yeah, this one is a little bit early today as well because Nick, unfortunately, has some other things to take care of, and so do I later on this evening. So, yeah, here we are. We got lots of games to discuss. But first off, I want to make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below if you have not done so already. Get on that and get into our 1,000 YouTube subscriber challenge. If we reach 1,000 subscribers by MLS Cup Final, one subscriber will be drawn to win a $250 Visa gift card. So if you haven't done that already, hit it. And as well, you can pick up some of our merch at sonsofapitch.redbubble.com. And you can find us on social media, Twitter at SOP Soccer, Instagram and Facebook at Sons of a Pitch Soccer. You can find all of our daily tweets on there. Twitter is probably our most active platform. But yeah, so thanks to everybody who subscribed and purchased our swag recently. We really appreciate it, as well as everybody who's joined our conversation on Twitter, including we got a few questions today from Sleeping In 21, Hipster Football Podcast, and CCM Football. Thanks for giving us some things that you want to hear about during this episode on Twitter. So I'll get to those questions after our weekly roundup. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into that roundup, going all the way back to October 27th. Montreal hosting Nashville SC. Nashville gets the victory 1-0 over a struggling Montreal team. Vancouver and Seattle, the Sounders take care of business over a struggling Vancouver team. New York Red Bulls and New England, 1-0 Red Bulls over their rivals New England. Cincinnati at home in the last game at Nippert Stadium against Sporting Kansas City. They lose 1-0 to one of the better teams in the Western Conference. So what I want to talk about during those games is, the Nashville success. This team just continues to go unbeaten. They're winning games. They're drawing games. They're doing extremely well. It was funny, back on my picks and predictions, which I'll actually be doing right after this show for the Wednesday games this week. Somebody on Twitter said, hey, you really are underestimating Nashville a lot. And I'm like, you know what? I am. No, not anymore. We're picking Nashville, and we picked them in that one to win, and they did. And they continue to win games. So good on Nashville for that one. And it looks like they're going to continue as well, because they're just really, really strong right now. So they get it done against Montreal. Then another thing I want to touch on is Sporting Kansas City and Cincinnati. Cincinnati, their struggles continue. This poor team, they are just really, really hurting. And it's kind of odd that you have a team like Nashville and a team like Cincinnati. Since he came into the league last year, Nashville comes in this year, and Nashville's a much better team than Cincinnati. I know they had a lot of issues in the front office and things like that. But man, that is a big, big difference between those two clubs, even though they kind of had the same ideas and the way they're building their team. So very, very surprising to see Nashville's success and Cincinnati's struggles. Really hope for Cincinnati they can kind of clean house in the offseason and start to get better, because that fan base deserves a lot better. Great fan base there in Cincinnati, and I hate to see them losing it a little bit with, I know success sometimes can take time. It's not the LAFC or the Atlanta United model all the time, but that's you really got to hope that they can start picking things up. So we got Daniel Young on with us. He went to Yankee Stadium to watch the game from the train station. That is absolutely awesome. That is really cool. I didn't know you could actually get a glimpse of the pitch from the train station. Excuse me. That's really cool. So congratulations, Daniel, to your New York City team. Them getting that big victory there over the Red Bulls, and as well getting a victory over Toronto FC, which we'll talk about momentarily. So glad you jumped on with us, Daniel. Really appreciate it. Next up in the October 28th matches, we had Orlando whooping Atlanta 4-1. Philadelphia beats Chicago 2-1. Toronto FC loses to New York City, as I just said, 1-0. DC United beats Columbus 1-0, and Minnesota beats Colorado 2-1. So, man, this is probably Orlando City. This has been a turn of the tides for those two franchises, right? Orlando's been struggling for basically since they came into the league. Atlanta came into the league, all guns a-blazing, did extremely well, and continued to whoop up on Orlando for a long period of time. Well, that has changed now. Orlando wins 4-1 in this one, a big-time victory there. They get goals from one of their up-and-comers, Daryl Dike. This guy is definitely a name to be watched. He is kind of getting talk about maybe some USMNT call-ups in the future as well. You know, he gotten a goal and an assist in this one on 2 shots. You know, Chris Mueller, Teshuak Ndeli, and Mateus Alas with the other goals, and Eric Cubo Torres with the goal for Atlanta. This one was a beatdown from Atlanta, that's for sure. Now, as well, moving on, because I just can't seem to shake why Atlanta is so bad. They do have some talent, but Orlando much better than them this season. Philadelphia and Chicago. Chicago really gave the Supporter Shield leaders a game in this one, even though they were down a man. They were down in the score. They came back and tied it up. They were down a man, and Philly gets the job done to secure the 3 points and kind of put a stranglehold on that Supporter Shield with Toronto FC's result. But we'll talk more about the Supporter Shield coming up later on when we get to our matchups from this past weekend. But Chicago not looking horrible. They're kind of in that playoff spot. We also have a breakdown of the standings coming up as we head into the final week of play for this MLS season. So Philadelphia, they get the job done. Chicago, still an okay team, middling playoff team maybe, but better than the bottom of the league where they were just a not too long time ago. Toronto FC in New York City. New York City goes into Rentschler Field and just beats down Toronto FC. Man, TFC was looking rough in this one. Not a good look for them. They coming off of that big-time loss against Philly. Then they show it up with the loss to New York City. Could have been more for New York City. This was a game that New York City had written all over it. Was big-time win, and TFC just couldn't get anything going on goal. Obviously, they had a lot of injuries. No Akinola. They were without Marky Delgado, Jonathan Osorio. Chris Mavinga was out along the back. There are definitely some injuries for Toronto, but New York City, well-deserved win. And New York City's rolling right now. DC United and Columbus. DC United shocks Columbus 1-0. Bottom of the team, DC takes out the Columbus Crew. Very surprising result there. DC has definitely flipped the switch since Ben Olsen is gone and they brought in the interim coach. But will it be enough to salvage their season? I doubt it. But a good victory over Columbus, which set up a great matchup we'll discuss further. That was yesterday for Columbus and Philly. Minnesota and Colorado, 2-1 Minnesota in this one. Colorado, they're at least starting to come together a little bit now since they've been off the field for a while with the COVID break that they've had with all the positive tests. They were without a game in training for about 3 weeks. So that definitely showed, but starting to come together now. This was their second game back, and they lost to Minnesota 2-1. All right, so now Daniel Young, he's got already saved up $200 for my possible TFC versus New York City trip at BMO Field Well, Hartford. Sorry, I'm not sure when TFC will play due to COVID restrictions. Agreed. They will probably not be back in Canada this season. Maybe next year. I don't know. Maybe they stay in Hartford for another season if the Canadian government decides that they can't have them back. So good stuff. Saving up that money to go see that possible playoff matchup. That would be a good one in the playoffs. Absolutely. FC Dallas and Miami. FC Dallas comes back with 2 second-half goals to beat Miami 2-1. A strong result there for Dallas. Miami having trouble holding on to a lead in the second half. That has shown not only in this game, but also the game yesterday against TFC. Portland against the LA Galaxy. Portland rips the LA Galaxy apart. I said it in my picks and predictions. LA Galaxy is trash, and it's going to be a beatdown. There's no question about it. Portland will get the victory. They did. 5-2. One of the best goals of the season by Andy Polo in this one. Absolute beautiful volley that hit the back top corner of the net. LAFC and Houston 2-1. LAFC gets the victory. San Jose beats Real Salt Lake 2-0. And then on Halloween night, Saturday night, FC Dallas wins the Texas Derby over Houston 3-0. FC Dallas, 2 victories in a row, one over Miami, one over Houston, both teams struggling. Do we read into anything about FC Dallas's successes in their last 2 matches? Is FC Dallas a real playoff contender here, or are they strictly just a we can beat the smaller, badder teams, but we can lose to everybody that's above us? I think it is more of the latter, but they get the job done over Houston, win the Texas Derby, get those bragging rights there. LAFC, is this team for real? LAFC beats Houston 2-1. Then they come in and they're coming back with Carlos Vela now. Maybe this team is for real. I know I definitely would not want to face them in the playoffs. However, where they are seeding-wise, I don't believe they would get to be in a position where they would be hosting many games. But even an LAFC team on the road with Vela, with Rossi, is a dangerous, dangerous team. Are they as good as last year? Absolutely not. But I know I wouldn't want to play them if I was playing in the playoffs in the Western Conference. So I think LAFC is for real. I think they're still a good team. They've got a lot of those pieces from last year, and I think they'll be all right and might make a run in the playoffs that could cause some damage to the brackets for sure. Also on Halloween night, Nashville and Chicago draw 1-1. Moving on to the games from yesterday, Columbus reopens the Supporters Shield race for Toronto FC, Columbus, Portland, and Philly. Columbus gets the job done. 2-1 victory over Philly. This was a very interesting game. I'll kind of stop the scores here for a second to discuss this one. This was a very, very interesting game. Columbus definitely got outplayed. Philly was the better team. However, it all came down to one thing, and that one thing was Columbus had their players and Philly was missing one of theirs, in the name of Andre Blake. Joe Bendick, former TFC man, I love him. But he is not even as good as he used to be when he was with TFC, and he wasn't ever that good to begin with. So he missed both of those goals. Were opportunities that he could have had to stop those goals. The first shot he should have had, Andre Blake would have had it. And the second one, that he should have played that ball better. His positioning was horrible, and it gave Columbus the 2 goals because they've got their full content of their best players back. Zardes is back. They've got Zelarayan is back. They've got all their guys, and Nagby's back. So they're fully gelled. That squad is together now. And they took out Philly 2-1. So that kind of opens things back up now for the Eastern Conference for that Supporters Shield race, as well as Portland. They have a chance to get back in it as well, depending on how they do Wednesday night. But we'll take a look at the standings in a few minutes, and we'll talk more about that. Atlanta beats Cincinnati again. Cincinnati, God, this team, the struggles continue for this team. It is not pretty for Cincy, and God bless you, Cincinnati fans. First team eliminated in the Eastern Conference from the playoffs. It's official now. Their season is over. Atlanta stays in the run for a playoff spot. Atlanta is a huge wild card when it comes to the playoffs. They will be playing in that wild card game if they get in. But who knows what will happen? Will they make a run in the playoffs? They have some talent. A team with Ezekiel Barco, Rossetto, with Miles Robinson when he gets back from COVID. Some of these players, they've got players. Cubo Torres up top isn't that great. Not a Joseph Martinez, but he's decent. So Atlanta is not a team I would want to play in the first round of the playoffs, that's for sure. Kind of similar to LAFC. There is just that maybe it's because of their successes in the past that make them a little bit more scary than they need to be. But that's my thoughts there. New York City FC and New York Red Bulls in the New York Derby. New York City FC gets the victory, 5-2. Easy win for NYCFC. Montreal and Orlando. Orlando goes into New York to beat Montreal at Red Bull Arena, 1-0. So really the biggest things was this New York Derby. The Red Bulls and New York City FC, there is a separation in the playoffs and the point standings between the two, but New York City just completely dominated this game in the second half. It was tight. It was 2-2. Really a barn burner, right? 5-2, 7 goals total. This would have been a really fun live to do. And I'm really annoyed that I was on the highway in Iowa and Illinois and not able to do this live last night because it was looked like a lot of fun. This one had total shots was 18-10. 10 shots on target for New York City. 5 of those goes in. 5 shots on target for New York Red Bulls. 2 of them goes in. Possession was heavily favored to New York City at 57% to 43 for the Red Bulls. So this one was a good beating by New York City. They hold the bragging rights in New York unless there's a matchup in the playoffs, which I don't know if that will happen. But Valentin Castellanos with the hat trick. TT Castellanos gets the 3 goals. New York City is a team to reckon with these playoffs coming up as well. They've got their pieces back. Maxi Morales is in. He's back and playing. Jesus Medina looks like the resurgent self of when he first came over to the league. Castellanos is scoring goals right now, obviously with the hat trick. Alexander Ring gets a goal in this one as well. That's definitely a good run out by New York City. So Daniel, I'm sure you're happy. He says New York City subway fares will go up to $3.50. So hopefully this won't impact attendance moving forward. Yeah, I mean, hopefully it won't because the fares are just constantly going up. That costs more money to run these things, and they're raising the prices for them. So not sure what the rate was before that, but it continues to go up. That seems to be the way it is everywhere. Here we have in the Orlando and Montreal game, man, Montreal, how is this team a playoff team? I can't wrap my head around it. How Montreal is still sitting in a playoff spot. This team is horrible. Orlando continues to win. They continue to get points. Will this team go deep in the MLS Cup playoffs? I think they will. I think they might just pull an upset against a New York City or a Toronto or a Columbus and get it done and make a run in the MLS Cup playoffs. This team, they fared very well in the MLS's back tournament. They were the home team, even though everybody was in a bubble, so it wasn't a perfect setup for them. But this team is for real. They keep winning games, and they beat a Montreal team who they should have beaten and beat them handily. 16 shots on target from Montreal, though, but only 5 on target, both teams with 5. And possession 52-48, so pretty tight there. But from what I watched of this game, Montreal just can't seem to get it going. A real lack of urgency was what the TSN announcers were saying. And that's the way I felt about it as well. It just seemed like this team doesn't care. They're not hitting the stride the way they should be in the final days of a season when you're fighting for your lives in a playoff spot. Thierry Henry, everybody, is giving him credit, but it doesn't look like he's doing a great job of managing this team, at least from what I can tell. So the goal in this one, this was by who else but Daryl DK, one of our up-and-coming breakout youngsters that we had discussed in our team preview back God, back in, what was it, March, February, when we were doing team previews, a really good joke in that one. Nick kind of lost his pronunciation there of Daryl DK, and that was pretty fun. So so go check that one out. Salvador Chavez jumps on. Hi, my friend. Hi, Salvador. Thanks for jumping on with us. Appreciate you coming on. I'm flying solo today. And of course, we're way earlier than normal today. But thanks for jumping on, Salvador. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed today's show. All right, moving right along. 5 more games to discuss before we get to our quick halftime break. New England and DC United in another barn burner. 4-3 New England is the final over DC United. DC was up in this one 2-0. Looked like it was going to be a DC United game where they continue their hot streak since they let go of Ben Olsen, but New England climbs back up and beats them 4-3 at home at Gillette Stadium and gets themselves right in that playoff, in that middle ranking of the playoff teams in the East. Toronto FC against Miami. TFC with a second half comeback over Miami. This is the second straight game Miami has given up a 1-0 lead in the second half to lose 2-1. TFC finds life again in the second half in this one. What a difference from the last 2 games for TFC. They bring back Ayo Akinola. He's back from injury as well. Chris Mavinga was in at the back line. And what a difference when you don't have Laurent Simon on the back line and you don't have Patrick Mullins up top. Although Mullins, when he did come in the second half, kind of really changed it up for TFC when they had Mullins and Akinola up top. A big difference between how TFC was playing with those 2 strikers up there compared to just the one of Ayo Akinola in the first half and the one of Patrick Mullins / Pozuelo in the last 2 games. So TFC gets it done. And with that result against Columbus over Philadelphia earlier in the night, it opens back up. Toronto and Philly tied on points. What's going to happen next week? Who's going to win their games? Who's going to draw? All that decision day. It's going to be fun. Colorado beats Seattle 3-1 in one of the shockers of the week. I thought Seattle would wipe the floor with Colorado. They've seemed to have gelled back up, and they get the win there. Portland and Vancouver, 1-0 Portland, and then the Galaxy somehow get some life under Dominic Kinnear. Surprising. Now the GBS is out, and Galaxy get the 2-1 victory at home over RSL, and RSL is done. They're knocked out. Good night. Their season's over, and Damir Krylak was very upset and definitely gave a big thank you to the fans for everything they went through this season. Colorado and Seattle. This one is probably the most surprising result to me. You've got the Seattle team, who's one of the best in the league, and Colorado dominated from start to finish. 16 shots total to 9 shots for Seattle, 10 on goal for Colorado to 3. Seattle did hold possession in this one, but Colorado really seemed to outplay them in most facets of the game. The goals in this one, Shinya Shiki, then Morris tied it up in the 22nd minute. Keegan Rosenberry and Cole Bassett get the goals to put away Seattle Sounders on this game. But Seattle's not worried. They know where they are. They know they're heading into the playoffs soon, and they're not concerned with a loss in this game. So, lastly, Portland continues to win games. This team is a strong, strong team. The West is a toss-up between Portland, Seattle, and Sporting Kansas City. I lean towards Seattle just because of the experience that they have. But if they play like they did against Colorado, that's not going to happen. Portland or Sporting Kansas City will come out of the West. One thing I can tell you is decision day is going to be a lot of fun. And another thing I can tell you is, boy, oh boy, these playoffs are going to be awesome. We've got a lot of parity in this league this season. If we somehow end up with a Seattle-Toronto final again, I don't know how that would work. But overall, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Lots of good teams this year, and nobody that's really taken that leap to say they are by far the best team. Sometimes you think Seattle, sometimes you think Toronto, sometimes you think Philly. Philly doesn't really have any playoff experience. Seattle and Toronto do, but Toronto hasn't looked good in their games. Seattle now loses a game like this to Colorado. Portland, they've got injuries. They're missing some of their key guys. There's lots of different factors involved here that can mess that up. So with that, let's take I'll take a quick sponsor break. We'll discuss the standings and look ahead to decision day in just a minute. So it's a quick sponsor break here. Thanks to our sponsors, Donovan Food Brokerage and Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water. You can get that Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water at any Walgreens nationwide. Awesome water. It's really good, really refreshing. Donovan Food Brokerage, all your food brokerage needs in the Midwest, go find them at www.donovanfoodbrokerage.com. If you or anybody you know has a restaurant, they need some food services, look it up, donovanfoodbrokerage.com. They will take care of you. They've been in the business for a long time, and those guys are awesome over there. So check that out. Also, we have our competitive Skira Icelandic spring water, 8.88 pH, naturally alkaline water. This one's available at your local 7-Eleven. So you have no excuse. If you are driving around town, if you're at home, you're going to have a Walgreens or a 7-Eleven near you. Go pick up Skira or Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water. All right. Hey, there's Rocky jumps on here. He says, yo, Mike, you're the best. No, Rocky, you're the best, man. Keep all the good work up there in Portland, kicking ass with your team doing really good. Appreciate you jumping on. And looks like Portland's rocking, man. It's going to be fun. Rocky had a good live video last night, so check him out at Talkin' to Woods on Instagram. Rocky, thanks for jumping on, man. So let's talk a little bit about these standings. Right now, we'll talk about the Eastern Conference first. The Eastern Conference, Philadelphia Union and Toronto up top at 44 points, 2 points per game. Then you've got the second tier, right? Columbus, Orlando City, New York City, all within striking distance of each other. Then you got the Revs, who are kind of there, kind of in the bottom pack there. Then you've got Nashville, New York Red Bulls, Montreal Impact, and Chicago Fire tied with Atlanta. But due to the games played, Chicago's sitting in that playoff spot. What to take out of this? I think the East is very, very top heavy. I think your top teams are your top five. The bottom five, there's a big difference in quality between New England, Nashville, New York, Montreal, and Chicago as they're comparatively to Philly, Toronto, Columbus, Orlando, and New York City. I would take all five of those teams if they matched up today in the playoffs. Right now, obviously, you would have the play-in games. You would have the Fire going to Nashville, and then you would have Montreal going while staying at home, but playing the Red Bulls at Red Bull Arena. Those games are toss-ups. I think they could go either way. Nashville's been pretty good lately. Montreal has not been very good lately, so either of the Red Bulls, really. So, in those matchups, I see, the teams that are in the top five are going to be there, and they're going to win those games in the first round of the playoffs. So the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs may not be too great, but after that, it should be a good one. Atlanta, Inter, Miami, and DC United still have a shot to get into the playoffs if their results go their way on decision day. However, that one, I think Atlanta may get in. Miami hasn't been too great as of late. DC United, maybe they continue their miracle run and somehow get into the playoffs. But I think for Montreal and the Fire, they might get replaced by one of the two of Atlanta or Inter Miami, but that would probably be it. Then he's got Rocky says, did points per game mess with the East like Colorado? So no, because they're playing these games on Wednesday. All the Eastern teams are still right there within one game of each other. So the Fire, Nashville, Orlando City, Columbus, those teams are all playing Wednesday, so they're going to get to their 23 games. But when we move over to the Western Conference, you'll see here a big disparity in games played. The Galaxy at 20, and then you've got the Rapids at 16. The Rapids are really the exception to the rule here. They're putting it through points per game for the Rapids, which there's a positive to that and there's a negative to that. Personally, I don't like it. I think it should be based off of total points because, again, you have to remember now, if Colorado wins a game their points per game is going to jump more than if San Jose wins a game. So because San Jose's played more games, that average is going to be less. So I think it's unfair that right now, as we stand right now, if San Jose wins and Colorado wins, they're going to get a bigger bump in the standings because of that. So I think that's a little bit off. But overall in the Western Conference, Portland Timbers, Rocky, your boys, 38 points all by themselves at the top of the table, 21 games played. Sporting Kansas City, 36 points. Sounders at 35, Minnesota United at 30, but a points per game of 1.58. LAFC and Dallas on 31 points, Rapids at 22, but the points per game of 1.38, and the San Jose Earthquakes. The two eliminated teams in the West, Real Salt Lake and Houston, they are out. And Rocky says he agrees completely. So there you go. Rocky, we always seem to be on the same page. Then you've got FC Dallas and LAFC kind of in that middle with Minnesota. And the top, it's really just a fight between Sounders, Sporting Kansas City, and Portland on who's going to take the West. However, Portland is the only team in the West who has a chance for the Supporters Shield. If they win their game on Wednesday as well as win the game on Sunday and the results go their way, they have a slight chance at the Supporters Shield. Don't think it will happen. I think Philadelphia's goal differential, I think they're pretty much safe with that. But could be interesting. Portland might get in there and steal it from those teams in the East. That would be pretty interesting. So that's kind of the shakedown of what the standings look like right now. We will see how they go here over the next few days on Wednesday as well as on Sunday. All right, so let's get into some of our questions from our listeners. Put out a tweet today. We got a question from Hipster Football Podcast. They said, talk about Jack Harrison ripping up the EPL and being USA made. So here's a guy, we've talked about him in the past. Jack Harrison comes over from England. He's an English player, comes over here and ends up getting drafted by New York City, kind of played for them in their academy days. And then you've got this guy comes in as a top draft pick, plays well in MLS, and moves up with getting things done, and ends up moving over to England. Gets sold to Manchester City, parent club of New York City, and now he gets loaned out. He's with Leeds United, who was in the championship last year, gets promoted, and now he's playing in the Premier League, the best league in the world. It's funny, Hipster Football Podcast. Thanks for watching, and love your guys' stuff over there on all things football. And it's really interesting that this guy kind of took the road that a lot of players don't take, and it worked out well for him. MLS is a league that obviously is way below England's standards. Even the championship, I think, is slightly below the championship. And they come over here, they do well, and it turns them into back to being a commodity in English football. So right now he's valued at $7.7 million on Transfer Market, the website Transfer Market. He's got 1 goal and 1 assist in the first 5 games, but he's been playing well. Don't know about today. I know they were down 2-0 to Leicester City. It was probably about an hour and a half ago, so the game's probably over. But he's getting a lot of attention overseas, and I think it's mostly because of how he kind of did it, how his story went. So overall, I think it's a great story for MLS. It's a great story for Jack Harrison, and hopefully we'll see more young English players doing the same thing. Something that could be a little bit similar here is Gallagher from Toronto was signed by Liverpool and didn't really get much playing time in Liverpool. Didn't really amount to the starlet that they thought he was going to be. And next thing you know, he's loaned out to an MLS side. He's playing in MLS. Obviously, he's only been here for a few games. He's stood out as definitely a good player. Hasn't quite made his mark on the team yet, but I think that'll take another 6 months or so, maybe into next year. And maybe he stays in Toronto. Maybe he goes back and gets back in England. But yeah, that's definitely a route that people are looking to take here. So very good question. Thank you, Hipster Football Podcast. Appreciate it. And now the next one is a little bit of USMNT talk. So we've got a question from CCM Football. wants us to talk about the November friendlies roster. So this one is going to be a Europe-based camp with a game against Wales. The game against Australia fell through. I don't know if they're going to find a second friendly for this one, but they're having the camp over in Europe, and for what I can tell, it's going to be mostly European-based players that are going to be in this squad because they have cut out breaks in their calendars for this. MLS is going into the playoffs, where they even changed their COVID protocol for guys coming back from this friendly window. So I don't think you're going to see many MLS players unless their teams are out of the playoffs going over to be part of this. So for me, I want to see the best players on the field the entire time. That's what I want to see. I think I want in that one friendly, I want all the big names. Serginho Dest, Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, Christian Pulisic. I want those guys on the field playing in that game. So for me, my starting 11 out of the European-based players is Zach Steffen in goal, obviously with Manchester City. As long as he can stay healthy, the guy has got tons of talent and is hands down the number one for the U.S. men's national team. On defense, I want to see Reggie Cannon, who just recently transferred from FC Dallas over to Boavista in Portugal. John Brooks, Chris Richards from Bayern Munich, Serginho Dest from Barcelona, and I want McKennie in the midfield from Juventus, Tyler Adams, Christian Pulisic, and Tim Weah. And then Reyna kind of maybe it might even be 5 mids, right? You kind of have Pulisic in that setback 10 maybe slide over to the wings a little bit, and Tim Weah and Gio Reyna on the wings with Sargent up top. That's what I want to see because we've got to start building a team now where these are the guys. We got to get that core together now with World Cup qualifying coming up for 2022. And the experimenting should be over, right? We got to get these guys familiar with each other, playing with each other. Obviously, with the COVID issues that we've had, we've lost a lot of time with that. So I'm good with getting a lot of these guys who are based in Europe put into that starting 11, and then possibly some of the MLS guys in the January window. When you get mostly MLS players, you see a lot of young US kids, MLS kids that'll get call-ups. At that point, kind of bring them in and into the fold, and maybe some of them could slot in, right? Maybe with Cannon, maybe there's an opportunity for an MLS player there. Maybe with Tim Weah, even Gio Reyna, maybe there's somebody that could jump into that spot. I don't know who, because honestly, I like this starting 11 where it is. Outside of John Brooks, I'd probably put in Walker Zimmerman over John Brooks from the MLS. But yeah, maybe Sargent with the striker. I don't know. Sargent is decent. However, there are a lot of good young players. I mean, give Daryl Dike a shot. Give Ayo Akinola a shot. Let's see what they can do. But I think we need to really start focusing on gelling a team together so that come qualifying time, come World Cup time, we have all got a good base and they're familiar with each other. They're comfortable with each other. And we kind of go from there. So that's what I'm going with for the November friendlies roster. I want to see no MLS players that are in the playoffs on that roster. Nobody should be taken away from their team going into the playoffs like this. That MLS completely switched their schedule up to avoid this, and COVID went ahead and screwed that all back up. It's a friendly against Wales. Nick and I have talked about it in the past. I think it was last episode. We talked about how it doesn't really matter. I mean, this game against Wales means nothing. Let's just start talking about some cohesiveness and getting together on the field. So those are my thoughts there. CCM Football, again, thank you for that question. And then the last question that we had is from Sleeping In 21 on Twitter. It says, talk about playing American youngsters in MLS and abroad. For me, it's all about the Alphonso Davies plan, the Tyler Adams plan, right? How they come up with their MLS side and they don't just get sold when they're 16 years old and they haven't played a game for the first team and they go off to some big name club like Blue Tableau went to Barcelona. Now he's back with Montreal. They play in the MLS team. They make their way as a substitute, then up into that starting role. and they become not a star player, but a good player in MLS, or possibly even a star, like Alphonso Davies was pretty much guaranteed that he was a star with Vancouver. But you want to see that progression in MLS and then make the move overseas, because these guys that leave when they're 16, 17 years old, get signed by a big club, get loaned out to some second-rate side in Portugal, it doesn't really work out well for them most of the time. There are some exceptions, but most of the time it doesn't work out well. So for me, two things. One, kind of go with that build through MLS to become a good player in MLS. And second of all, MLS, you need to play the kids. Play the damn kids. These guys, you're in MLS for a reason, and there's a salary cap and all these different rules that are in play. You want to see that being taken advantage of, and, have these kids who are up and coming get their minutes in MLS. Abroad, same deal, right? These guys that are the younger players that are even based in Europe. Look at Chris Richards with Bayern. He's actually starting to break in now. He's playing with Bayern Munich too all the time, and he's kind of breaking into that first team. Serginho Dest is starting for Barcelona. McKinney starting for Juventus. Pulisic, obviously, with Chelsea. There's been the Frank Lampard drama and all that kind of business. We won't get into all of that. But these guys are playing. Gio Reyna, he's playing. He's starting. That's what we need to see, is 90 minutes, 70 minutes, 80 minutes, every single game. And that way that's going to pan out well for the growth and development of these younger American players. I mean, look at that roster. Just even now this year compared to this time last year, Gio Reyna has kind of blown up. Weston McKennie, even though he was playing with Schalke, he's kind of blown up now. He's with Juve. Dest, even though he was with Ajax, now at Barcelona. Chris Richards wasn't really on the scene yet at Bayern. So definitely let's get these kids minutes. And as long as they're playing, they will continue to grow. And that's what I want to see. All right, so that kind of takes up the questions there. Thank you for that question, Sleeping In 21. And the last thing I want to touch on here before I take a quick second and get ready for picks and predictions for just for Wednesday's games, we've got the Champions League. CONCACAF Champions League is back. They have finally put together their full plan. Well, not full. It's a plan, and it's pretty much full, but they haven't decided on the location yet. But it was announced today that MLS Cup's scheduled to be played on December 12th. Then a quick turnaround, if it is a MLS Cup participant in that game is still in the Champions League, it's quick turnaround. December 15th and 16th are the quarterfinal matchups in the CONCACAF Champions League. Now, it's going to be an interesting one. This tournament's going to be played in one strategic location with all the COVID protocols in place, kind of like a little bubble for a week, December 15th through the 22nd. The quarterfinals, because they were already started, those three that had already started, they're going to play the second legs and continue like this was the second leg. The other one between LAFC and Cruz Azul did not get their first leg played. So that game will be played strictly in a one match. That's it, winner take all. So that one, LAFC and Cruz Azul, nobody's in the lead there, but the MLS sides are struggling right now. Atlanta's down 3-0 to Club America. That was an Atlanta team with Joseph Martinez, I believe. And now they don't have Joseph Martinez, and we all have seen how bad Atlanta is right now. Montreal is losing to Olympia. I think they probably have the best chance. And NYC was losing 1-0 to Tigres. Luckily, that was in New York, and the technical away match for New York City will be at this random place in the United States, wherever they're hosting it, which they have not announced yet, just that they did announce that it will be in the U.S. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Hopefully, we can get an MLS team into the semifinals. The semifinals will be a couple days later on the 19th, December 19th, and then the final 3 days after that on December 22nd. So CCL's back. That's exciting. I'm glad that we are there. And with that, I really appreciate you guys jumping on with us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and continue to help us grow. Really appreciate it as well. go find our merchandise. We've got merch at sonsofapitch.redbubble.com. We have got everything from t-shirts to hoodies to tank tops, socks, bags, buttons, water bottles, laptop pouches, purses. I mean, you name it, they've got it at Redbubble. And a portion of those proceeds come back to us to help us continue to grow and grow the conversation and the sport of soccer here in the United States, because that's what we are about. With that, thank you all for joining. I'll be on with picks and predictions on YouTube live in about 15 minutes or so for the Wednesday, November 4th games, since the odds are out for that one, but not out for the decision day. And we'll do a separate video for decision day. So thanks, Rocky. Thanks to Daniel Young, Salvador Chavez. Appreciate you guys jumping on with me, and anybody else who's watching. Thanks. Talk to you guys very, very soon.